Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Friday, January 26th. And it's actually 10 after 4. Shelby, the black and tan, decided around a little after 3 to start barking that she needs to go out. So, I don't know about you guys, but once I'm up, I'm up. So I've been reading through the comments and stuff. And I enjoy, that's my favorite part of the day, is getting feedback and reading what you guys have to say. And when I say I enjoy the comments, I even enjoy the comments that are critical, because that helps me grow. You can always teach an old dog new tricks. Most of the sayings you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can if they're willing to learn and are open-minded. But if you close off that part of your brain that says, I'm right and you're wrong, you're not going to learn. But what I do know is that the comments are only helping me grow, but it's also helping other people that may not be commenting because, they're either shy or they don't want to be in the limelight of any kind, because you never know when I might grab somebody's comment and make it part of the show, right? But that's what it's all about. It's about us, right? You and me, and what we can do to solve the world's problems, right? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about tools, generators, recap the week, and go over a few comments where I think I can answer them better here than I can try to type it all out with my little fingers. All right, stay tuned. So welcome back. So we'll start with tools. When I'm talking tools and unboxing tools, when I'm talking about the entry level, just getting into it, I'm looking at you guys that are do-it-yourselfers that want to try doing some of these fixes to home. And I don't want to overwhelm you with the vast array of tools, okay? But that one set that had the 1/2 inch, 3/8 and quarter with all the metric and SAE sockets in it, that was under $60, other than lacking proper spark plug wrenches, because you don't know what you're going to come up against, right? Is a great starter set. And if you're talking about starting a small engine repair shop, that's not going to cut it. I mean, if that makes any sense. I know you guys that have got your own shops are going like this, but it's taken a while and being at the business to acquire the amount of tools that we have. We didn't have them all in the beginning. But I think if you're trying to start a small engine repair business and you're going to try doing it as a one-man band, one of the stipulations has to be that you know how to turn wrenches and you have your own wrenches to turn. And I know, like, just doing a lawnmower service, if it wasn't for my 1/2 inch air impact, I would never be able to get the spindle bolt, the blade bolt on the bottom off, because they rust right in. And we've even had to jump up to, you didn't hear it here, actual 3/4 inch air to bust some of them puppies loose. And when we go to put them back on, we don't want them loosening up on a customer while he's out mowing his yard, to have that blade bolt drop and that blade go flying, right? So we use the air impact to put it back on. I have very rarely found any lawnmower blades, unless it was less than a year old, of where I could use my 3/8 impact 20 volt to get it off. Just ain't gonna do it. So I mean, if you're working in your garage or you're working in a little shed that's out back and you're just learning how to turn wrenches, that would be a great set, okay? And there's a couple things that I would like to add to that, other than the screwdriver set, is you really do need to have a good quality compression tester, because that should be part of your, this is the first thing I check, okay? Now, you don't need a spark tester to test for spark. You can simply take the plug out, put it, into the coil wire, and just lean it up against part of the metal surface on that engine, and then turn it over, and you'll see spark flying back and forth. That's the way we used to do it. That's old time. That's the only way we used to do it. Or you take a screwdriver and reach down and put it on the blade of the screwdriver and the other end of the blade is touching the frame or the engine, and making sure you have a rubber or a plastic handle, because she will bite you. There's another way. But that's the way we used to do it. We didn't have the spark testers. And as you do it more often, you will know when the machine comes through and you give it a pull if it's got compression or not. The only ones that will stump you are the easy starts that steel has, where you kind of, then it spins, where it's pulling pretty easy, and then they call them the easy starts. I hate them with a passion. Even to use them, I hate them with a passion. But must be some people like them because they're still building them, right? So I just wanted to make it clear that when I talk about someone starting out, if I say someone starting out wanting to get into the repair business, first and foremost, you need to be able to turn wrenches and understand basic mechanics codes, on what to do. I mean, you have YouTube, you have us that you can rely on, but most of the stuff that I've learned from trial and error, and more error than trial, right? You made it, you screwed up, and you figured out how you screwed up and why you screwed up, and that gets chalked up into the old memory, right? So the next time you see it, you go a different direction. See, I know a lot of shops that will do a compression test, and if the compression's not up, they kick the machine out and call the customer. They never check the overhead valves on it to see if there's an issue there. I know a lot of shops that will do a compression on it, and if they can't get it to running right, they'll call the customer and tell them to come get it and give them a bill, tell them it can't be fixed, when it ends up being the arrestor screen and the muffler is plugged full and it has no place to exhaust. These things you learn as you go. Yes, you have YouTube out there, and yes, YouTube is teaching a lot of our future mechanics, per se. But there is a difference between the guy that's working on his own stuff on weekends and the guy that's working on somebody else's stuff weekends and nights. But there is a difference between those two types of people. Now, if you're trying to build your customer base and you're trying to build clientele, hopefully you're not learning on the customer's back, right? That you're charging, because this is part of your education. Whereas a do-it-yourselfer may encounter a couple of his units per year, you're working on multiple units. And this is where you need to hone your skills a little. And when I say hone, I mean knowing what the right tools are for the right job. Now, does that mean that you have to have, and we discussed this before, top of the line, snap on, specialized? Absolutely not. I've got friends that are mechanics that if you look at their half-inch drive sockets, most of them are a mixed kebab of S&K, Billings, Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh, But as long as they have all the sockets for that set, 7/16 through 1.25 inches, it doesn't matter what the name is on them. See, that's what I'm trying to stress, is you don't have to have top-of-the-line tools. Some guys that have made being a mechanic their living, and these are guys that work for other people and are paid by what they accomplish. A lot of times they're flat rate mechanics. And if it takes longer than the allotted time, they're losing money. And if it comes back, they're losing money. So they have to be super, super vigilant on making sure it's done right so it don't come back, and getting it out in that specified amount of time. And the way you get to that level is usually over years. It's not weeks, days, months, it's years. And a lot of times it's working under somebody else that is helping you hone and showing you the specialty tools and how to use the specialty tools to your advantage. Those guys are going to pay the bigger money, for their tools, because that's their livelihood. Whereas if you're just running a small engine repair shop, other than having it look nice and clean and well lit, there's nothing that says that you can't have a hodgepodge of sockets. As long as you have the complete set of SAE and metric, who cares? I guess is what I'm getting at. And now I'll jump over to generators. I want to tell you a quick story of my introduction to generators. Now, back in my teenage years, we never had a generator. If the power went out, the power went out. You were without, you had candles, flashlight, and you got by until the power come back on, right? Nobody had a generator. The fire department might have had one. But other than that, it wasn't a staple at every place. And then when I started working for other farmers and running their dairies and stuff, I really hadn't encountered power outage. You never give it a thought because it hardly ever went off. But when I bought my first farm, the farm I still own, first thing I did was I went around and introduced myself to the neighbors to let them know that if they needed something, I could help them with it, be glad to help them with it. And they all stressed, you need to get a generator big enough to run that farm. And I kind of, what? They say, look, it's notorious on this road of having problems with either the Battle Hill transfer station or what have you, but you need to invest in a good generator. So I started checking with them to see what they had, and my first big investment was a trailer mounted PTO driven generator that was driven off the PTO of one of my tractors. And I want to say that it was like 16,000 kilowatt. It was a big generator. But it was because it was my livelihood. The cows, especially during the winter months, because the cows got to have fresh, clean water all the time. You got to milk the cows within a certain period, twice a day is what we used to do. And if you got sloppy and you weren't precise, we used to milk. We start milking at right around 4 in the morning, be done by 6, so I could get a shower, change, and get to my day job, right? And then we would start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, milk till 6, come in, have dinner, relax a little bit, and then go to bed usually by 8:30, 9 o'clock to get back up at 4 o'clock the next morning. But if I didn't have the generator, the biggest problem I had was, one, I had to be able to maintain my milking schedule for the cows. If you didn't, you start getting mastitis and bad milk, all right? Two, I had to keep my refrigeration units running in the milk house to keep the milk at a certain temperature, to cool it down and keep it cool. And we had our milk picked up every other day. It wasn't so much for the house that we needed it, it was for the business. And that was my first introduction to owning a big generator. And now, it's harder to find someone that doesn't have a generator at their house than it is to have one. Everybody got, in our area up here, we got burnt bad during the ice storm. And that was in the 90s, where we were without power for like 27, 28 days. And at that time, I know that a lot of homeowners policies and FEMA bought a lot of generators for individuals for their homes. And there's still some of those old home lights running to this day, And back then, I think ours was a home light, and it was a 4,500 watt. And for what we needed in the house, it was plenty. But our main thing was we turned the hot water heater off, okay? So we could keep the freezer and the refrigerator going, and lights and heat. Heat was a big thing. We had fuel oil at that time, but it was electric igniter, so you had to have electricity. But we had a wood stove as well in the main living room, cathedral ceilings. And what we would do during that period is we just keep the wood stove going, and with a pot of water on top. So if you wanted a cup of coffee with instant coffee, you could make it pretty quick, or cocoa for the kids. And a lot of times, because at that time I was a fireman EMT, volunteer. So that required me to be out helping, during that time, my neighbors. So I wanted to make sure that I had to make sure my own wife and kids were taken care of first, all right? They were top priority. And then it worked its way down. But I spent countless hours on the road, and when it was hard for even the trucks, the tractor trailers, to make it in with food, we end up having the military from Fort Drum come through for us. And I can remember riding around in their Humvee delivering groceries to households. Heck of a bunch of good guys. I think they showed up with like 10, 15 Humvees, and they had the big trucks loaded right up with staples, a lot of your dry goods, rice, spaghetti, stuff like that. Canned goods. But now, everybody's got a generator. Everybody's ready for it. Everybody has learned from experience that you need to have one up here. Now, I agree with even Jason on this point of where he's running his small one, where it only takes a gallon for 11 hours of runtime. And sometimes gas being hard to come by. The ice storm was hard because you couldn't travel very far. Now, the closest gas station to me was 13 miles away, and they had power. But to get from the house to that gas station, would have been an all-day event because of the ice on the roads and the trees hanging over the roads, and tree crews out trying to cut trees off the power lines knocked right over from the weight of the ice. So I get what Jason's saying, but I can remember back then, even Claude, we would keep alternating. It's either 4 or 5 of the 5 gallon jugs of gas that would always stay in the garage, and we'd use it in our side by sides and whatever else. But we kept rotating them through, so we had fresh gas all the time. And during that ice storm, with the army coming through for us, they actually brought in a tanker that was right full of regular gas, and it was being dispersed. And firemen like me, we would load up our trucks with the fresh gas, and we would go out, especially to the elderly first, and make sure we got their generators topped off and checked the oil and that stuff. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. It's getting over 20 minutes again. Boy, time flies when you're having fun, right? So I wanted to kind of focus in on some of the comments and stuff. You know, with you, Steven, you said you have been wanting to ask me about generators. If there's something that you want me to do a video on, you know, I'm not telling you that I'm 100% right all the time, but I can give you my thoughts on it. And then once it's put out there, then we can get other people and their thoughts to kind of come to a consensus of what works best for everybody, you know. So post it in the comments if there's something that you'd like to see, you know, whether it be a carburetor rebuild, you know. I've done pressure washers, I've done generators, I can do like lawnmowers, what kind of lawnmower to buy, what size lawnmower to buy. I think probably is going to be the next video, probably today, if I get time. Because we're going to try doing a burn again. We tried it yesterday, and between the freezing rain and snow, that the brush just would not light. We tried for a while, and we were using a mix of kerosene and used engine oil to try to help get it going, and that didn't even work. So I want to comment on, like, with you, AJ. Yes, if you're in the business very long, you're going to find out in a hurry that you can't please everybody all the time. So your focus needs to be to please the majority of them most of the time. And when you're into those, that no matter what you do, you can't please, get rid of them off your customer list. Now, when you were saying that, you know, over 140,000 net, you know, and the reason I'm saying to keep it small is Jason and Travis will understand this. But the skills needed to work on luxury vehicles are a heck of a lot different than working on somebody's old clunker. Whether you're, you know, doing a service, it doesn't matter. Everything is that much harder. You need to know your shit, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it comes with experience. And when you start getting into like those tight niches, you know, you can take somebody on and try to teach them. And that might be the only way I would add somebody on, because if you add somebody on that says they can install a radio or they can do a service or they can do this or that, and they're somewhat sloppy, they can get away with it in a regular garage, you know, where people are bringing in older cars, you know, the late model cars. But if you're bringing in Mercedes-Benz and Ferraris and all those, it takes a special mechanic to be able to work on that stuff. And you can screw something up in a hurry, and your screw up will be very costly compared to, you know, most vehicles that we ride and drive. And then along those lines of doing a home service for like lawnmower repair and stuff, I agree with you, Work and Play, that we typically don't do a lot of home service, you know, because it gets very expensive in a hurry for the customer. But if it's just a service or a minor something, I could see it. But I'm with you. if you're looking at something serious where it's the transmission, the engine, something that is going to require a teardown, it will be 100% at my shop. It will not be out in the field. I can't control things out in the field where I can control them in the shop. So on that note, you guys have a great Friday. I'm not sure what I got planned for the weekend as of yet. It's going to be crappy out. It'll be time to work on videos and that kind of stuff. And on that note, we'll see you here bright and early Monday morning for the weekday show. And I always seem to post something, on Saturdays and then kind of like my Sunday sermon. So I appreciate all of you. Leave in the comments stuff that you'd like to see possibly in the future that I can do and show you how I do it. And we'll go from there. All right, guys.